It was 30 some years ago when I walked away from millions of dollars so I could go live on the streets with homeless people. I was hitchhiking aimlessly around the country with no actual destination when I found an old Bible and began skimming through it, reading the words that jumped off the pages at me, mostly the ones in red that Jesus spoke. It was then that I began having dreams of this angel. She would come to me at night and talk to me in my sleep. She asked me if I wanted to follow Jesus further, and I said yes. She gave me a series of instructions. Never consider yourself a Christian. Always consider yourself a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. Only read the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Pay no attention to the numerals, and avoid going to the churches, for they are filled with wolves in sheep's clothing. Over the next couple of years, she guided me all across the country. She led me to Quartzsite, Arizona, where I spent 3 days in the desert without food or water. She took me to Ithaca, New York, where I was introduced to the Rainbow family. She took me to Baltimore, Maryland, where I was the only white guy for at least 3 blocks. She took me to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I became a resident of the Covenant House. She took me to Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived on the streets with a black guy. When people saw us standing together, they looked at me as if I was him. I saw racism firsthand. She took me to South Carolina, where I met Little Hawk, and then she told me to go home. I spent the next 20 some years applying the teachings that Jesus taught me to my life. About 8 years ago, I began getting sick. I wouldn't be able to eat for a day or two, nausea, vomiting. Then I'd be able to eat for a week or two, and then I'd get sick for a week or two. I had no idea what was wrong with me. Doctors had no idea what was wrong with me. I went from 264 pounds to 131 pounds, a 50% loss of body weight in 1 year, known medically as wasting away syndrome, often fatal. I nearly died. And during that year, I began having dreams of her again. I hadn't seen her for decades, and now I'm having dreams of her again. She told me to read the entire New Testament and show myself to the priest at the altar. So I read the entire New Testament and I went to church. She told me I should no longer consider myself a disciple, that I should now consider myself an apostle to the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm like, what's the difference? I never once stopped to think about what's the difference between a disciple and an apostle. Disciple, one that is learning from a master. Apostle, one that has learned from a master and is now qualified to teach. So what do I consider to be the most important lesson that Jesus taught during his ministry? You have heard it was written, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but Jesus said to love those that hate you, bless those that curse you, for even the sinners love their own family. What profit will you have in heaven if you only do the same as the sinners? If a man slaps your right cheek, offer him also your left. If a man steals your coat, find him, give him your cloak. Jesus said that in a two-garment society. If compelled to walk 1 mile, offer to walk 2. Nobody understands that one these days. See, during the Roman occupation, there was a law that said a soldier could compel a citizen to carry his gear for 1 mile. That was the legal limit to protect the citizens from an overzealous soldier. The Jews were expecting a Messiah to come along and tell the Romans, no, you carry your own gear. And here's Jesus saying, if they ask you to walk 1 mile, offer to walk 2. It didn't go over very well. That's why they began listening to Paul. He told people what they wanted to hear. My next video will be titled Conflict at Antioch. That's the one people are going to want to stone me for. That's the one that's going to get me crucified. So make sure you subscribe to my channel because you don't want to miss that one. Thanks for watching.